So welcome back to what's becoming a well-watched series on Christian meditation, prayer of the heart. We thank you for following this series. We hope that you are learning, engaging, growing in the practice of meditation. And we invite you today to join us in a conversation about some of the major issues facing our young people in this country, Trinidad and Tobago, at this time. And our guests today include Sister Arlene, who is the manager of St. Dominic's Home in Belmont. Welcome, Sister.
Thank you, Michelle.
Irma Leslie, who is a teacher at St. Xavier's Prep School, which is out in St. Joseph, for those of you who can follow that on a map. And that's East Port of Spain. And Father Anton Dick, the former principal of St. Mary's College, back at St. Mary's College, teaching religion, and he joins us in that capacity today. Welcome, Irma. Welcome, Father Dick.
Thank you.
And welcome to all of you. And also welcome to all the people who are seeing this show beyond Trinidad and Tobago in the region, and also via YouTube on the website of WCCM. So we're becoming a more global, international phenomenon, if that's the word. But certainly being engaged by meditators around the world, and that's at least in that community, we're definitely having wonderful feedback. So to go to the matter at hand, the question of what affects our young people in Trinidad and Tobago today, and what do you see as the issues that are most pressing, that you're dealing with, that they seem to be dealing with, and that we're dealing with as a nation? Let me start with you, Sister Arlene.
Where to begin? Michelle, I think one of as we share on this theme of meditation, I think one of the things that I've been observing, and I'm sure it's not just in my space, my context of residential childcare, I'm sure the teachers amongst us would also be experiencing it in our young people, is this concept of boredom, right? In my own environment, it amazes me. Our children, there are so many activities. I mean, the public is so supportive of us. There's always something happening at St. Thomas. Always a party, out dinner, this activity, that activity. But in the midst of all of that, or just after that, you'd hear that word, bored. You know, and I am beginning to wonder if it is if in some way not related to a dissatisfaction, an emptiness, a longing that is largely unmet, uncatered for, unreached, certainly by children in our care at St. Dominic's, and I suspect further abroad. Our children, many of our children, we seek to understand what's happening in residential childcare in the context of trauma and loss. So we know that is the reason behind a lot of the difficulties that we see in behaviors and in challenges we have. And as we know, hurt people. And I think sometimes, I'm almost sure that there is a direct connection between the pain that our young people are carrying inside, their longing, their yearning, that in many ways is not being addressed, and this a lack of satisfaction, dissatisfaction. Nothing can cover or cater or remove that. And I think that is what very often they describe as boredom.
Mm-hmm. You keep talking about pain, but by and large, I'm dealing with people who are supposed to be above normal intelligence. What I experience is an emptiness. There is an emptiness, there is no center.
Yes.
And therefore, with all the multifarious things and the very things they're doing, it's not coordinated, there is no center. Therefore, they're doing a million things, not connected, and that is, you call it boredom. But they just move from one
to the next
action to another. There is no center. They are not seeing themselves as, well, I am doing this and this is part of my life. If I'm doing this, when it's finished, what else? What next is there to do? What's the next thing I do? And it's not coming from a center. We have failed them in that regard. Yes. No two ways about it.
Yes.
And the boredom is really emptiness, because they cannot bring, there are so many pieces. Internet, just take the world of technology alone. They have a million pieces of things to use. And the fingers are going But
Oh, yes.
there's no center. What's the next thing to do? What's the next piece? Give me an iPad, give me an iPhone, give me a smartphone, give me this. My old phone I have, they laugh at me with it.
too.
But I am clear about my old phone.
Yeah.
I ring, I receive calls, I receive text messages, and I'm all right. But they are on the cutting edge of everything. And bring the new one on.
And they're apparently bored.
They become too very
you see-
restless if they do not
it's a-
have. It's a pattern that is
The gadgets
forming
and the-
right now, all these gadgets.
So over
that
the
they have.
years, have you teach in a prep school, in a
Yes, primary school, yes.
private primary school?
Yes.
Over the years, have you seen a shift toward more restlessness? Or
Yes.
greater boredom?
Very much so.
Or,
They're bored. We cannot get away from that.
So
you
you
know,
see boredom
I
as
see
well?
that. Yes,
Or apparent boredom?
and they're restless.
What I find is so interesting is that you're representing different demographics, you know, and yet
There's
you have a very
common
common
denominator.
thread.
Yes.
You're seeing children across the board, or young people across the board, children and teenagers. Sister Arlene, from you said 6 to 16
6 to
or
18.
18.
Yeah, that would be our
The
population.
primary
Mine
schools,
is from 5
It's from
to
5
about
to 11.
11, yes.
and then Father Anton.
I have Form 6, but I haven't done too much meditation with the Form 6s. The bulk of the meditation work I've done are with the Form 3s,
Who are 14?
the supercharged, highly active Form 3s.
If you remember, Father Anton, I put 5 boys through St. Mary's, so you know.
You know about it?
Form 3 and I are very,
Yeah, you're
Very
familiar with
very,
it.
very familiar with that.
Yes,
But so you're dealing with these different demographics, and yet you're dealing with a constancy, a similarity, a shared observation.
Let me give you an example. I'm fanatical about sport. I think sports in a boys' school is on the same level as academics. Your good sportsmen should be good academics and vice versa. You look at the fellas playing sport now. I just met Charlie Davis today, one of the stars of St. Mary's cricket. And I was telling him, I said, we cannot get the boys to bat long innings. Why? Because 2020, bash hit. Game starts, game finishes in a few hours. Well, Charlie would go out there and bat and make 200 runs. And would be annoyed if he got out or if the day was over. They're not.
But that sense of the immediacy, the immediate, the now, and that inability to wait, to hold on. Yeah, it's also something, I know it's part and parcel of youth. Young people have energy, so they want, but it's a different thing I think we're experiencing. And therefore, so much in life, in order to do it well, you need to be able to wait.
Yes, but Arlene, the adults are not waiting either. You know?
Well,
Are
we going to go there?
Let us not say that.
You really want to go there?
No, but
We only have a
you
little
are
time.
saying the youth.
We have
I'm not
limited-
blaming
You
them.
only have a little bit of time.
I'm stating fact. I'm not
Yes.
blaming them. There's no blame attached to what I'm saying. The reality I'm experiencing is that these children have no center.
Yes.
And it's not because they're bad children. It is because
No,
they are
that's a
not
fact.
given a
That's a
center.
fact.
Yes.
The adults are equally ditzy and running after everything as are the children.
And they don't
And that's why it's
what
got
is
worse, because-
delayed gratification. It must be
But you
now.
see, but
now.
even in addressing
Yeah, that's
children
one
who
thing.
challenges and problems, okay, let's go back to my setting. Okay, where we now have to do something called ICPs, individualized care plans. So we have to do assessments. We do psychological assessments. We do medical examination. We do, so it's psychosocial, psycho-emotional. And we realize one of the things you need to also assess is the spiritual.
Absolutely.
So one of the shifts that we're seeing in our environment is the shift from the biopsychosocial to the biopsychosocial spiritual.
Absolutely.
Because, especially if you're treating with trauma and loss, a lot of the themes that come up are really spiritual themes, yeah?
And there's the center.
But we're not
That's what the Bible
addressing
calls
it.
the heart.
Yes.
I'm going
That's the
to-
Bible saying the heart.
Yes.
And
going
Lawrence
to
Freeman
use-
talks so much
that's
about
it.
the
I'm going
heart.
to use a word that I heard again today, or yesterday in preparing for this, or term, and that is prayer therapy. So
Yes,
I thought it was a good integration of, or integrated concept for us today.
Sure.
And maybe this is a good place to
To
introduce
introduce it, yeah.
because definitely, and of course in your case in particular, or maybe there is a recognition that in St. Dominic's home, therapy becomes necessary because of abandonment and loss.
And there's healing to be done.
And there's healing to be done. We don't necessarily make that assumption in St. Mary's College.
Exactly.
But more and more, I think it becomes evident
Yeah.
that through behavioral issues that there are areas of trauma and all sorts of varying levels.
Yeah, but the word therapy is a good one because the root of the word therapy is from the Greek to heal. And therefore, we have to heal this emptiness. It's not going to get away from us. We adults have to heal that emptiness because it's rampant.
But where, Father Anton, let me start here with you then about prayer and emptiness, prayer and therapy. How would you describe the therapeutic effect of prayer?
Well,
Or let's go back. Let's start even earlier position. Do you agree that prayer can be therapeutic?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Once you're in touch with God and with Jesus, you're in touch with a Savior, a healing God. And it gives you a sense to say, well, although I am a person who is flawed and I do things, I still can come back to what is a center that's almost immovable. God loves me in that center of my life, and He looks upon me as a father looks upon me. Whatever I do, I can come back to that. But when I go out there and I have no point, I'm in a sea, I am drowning, I have no comeback point.
Anchor.
As the Bajans always say, when you go in the sea, remember you have a back door. You know? And it's true.
We say it, but in a slightly different
Yes,
intonation.
yes. But, and therefore, and prayer brings us back. I mean, I've seen it. I have some text here to quote from the boy. I have seen where the silent meditation prayer just centers them. Well, we have a thing called centering prayer. Centers them, and it allows you to refocus. The word focus is a big word for these boys once they've done meditation. Because they recognize, wait, there's a center of action, which is myself, and I can do a million things, but it's coming from a center. And to me, that has been a revolutionary awareness of the boys who have done meditation.
Irma?
But
Well,
they're still hyperactive, eh?
Yes. Yeah, well, certain reality. Reality is reality.
Well, it's the same thing the children tell me at school. They feel calm.
This is meditation practice bringing.
Yes, prayer, meditation practice. Their minds become clear. They get a clear mind. They find themselves a little bit more focused on what
But
they
do they
want.
actually speak in terms of prayer and healing? Do they
Yes.
feel... you tell me.
Yeah, there's this little boy who's, he's pretty disgusting. And,
Oh, Lord.
no, he's a little bit more than the usual.
The normal
mischievous boy, And we are seeing a definite change in him. And he even tries now to correct others. You follow? So something is happening with him. And I feel it has come about because of prayer and meditation. So he's healing. It's a gradual process, but something's happening.
Yes.
And prayer life?
I think
in
that is
St.
something that
Dominic's.
we're moving to. We need to step up to step up a bit. Being a Catholic home, the children, of course, attend Mass and that kind of thing. But remember, we have a lot of children who are coming to us having had little to no structured experience of church community and that kind of thing. Aside from that, I think, Father spoke about focus, and I like to think of an anchor. And I think for children who are dealing with issues related to trauma and loss, as I keep coming back to that, and where trauma resolution is really the goal that we're working towards, they need an anchor. There's a guy by the name of Dr. Ricky Greenwald, and he developed an approach to trauma therapy called the fairy tale model. And he speaks about creating around the child something called a fence around. Nobody going to attempt to try something new if they feel that they're in an environment where they are still in danger. Okay? They have to feel some measure of rootedness, safety, in order to try the new behaviors you're trying to teach them. So that's what you're trying to do, right? Unless and until we can provide them with that, to the degree that we can provide them with that safe environment and an anchor, is the degree to which we can be effective in helping facilitating the healing. And I think that the resource of meditation is such a resource. I think, from my own experience, I think meditation helps to anchor us, right? In difficult situations where we feel, vulnerable, it is what helps to anchor us.
Well, one of the things that I also hear you saying, and this is a real, Father Anton will support me on this, a very fundamental kind of theological principle of becoming the subject of your life.
Exactly.
As opposed to being the object. And what I hear you saying
right.
about the boredom and the restlessness and the dependency on all these myriad of
External
things can create a kind of objectification of self,
Yes.
where you have lost the fact that you are the subject of your own life. And it also, I think, to sort of find that subject again, you also have to develop your interior life. And maybe it is that prayer is an opportunity for interiority, and until you have that sort of crucible or understand that, you really don't have the opportunity.
But I think far too often, though, there's a perception that is a luxury, that is the entitlement of a certain
elite.
Yes,
and I don't know if people are, how open we are to integrating that, applying that in a setting like my own, where we don't perceive of these children as being sophisticated enough to appreciate. You understand where I'm coming from?
But even as you just
so I think that is one of the huge challenges.
But look at Michelle's words of a minute ago. Interiority, crucible, subject,
more than two syllables.
Objectification. I said, wow. You know something? We did it in a very simple way before. I've been saying this to people now. We had intellectual principles in our lives from little sayings. I'm trying to get a student's companion. I just tried to order one today.
I think I still have mine.
Lend me, please. I'll photocopy it. Because the thing is, look before you.
Leap.
We learned that and we practiced it. Now, that is an elemental, intellectual, spiritual principle. I must not jump into anything without doing what I want to do. In other words, I think and I reflect. That ain't practice now at all. Then, for instance, don't burn the bridge that you have crossed. Because your brain tells you, you may got to go back, you have to go back there. A lot of these things, birds of a feather,
Flock together.
So if you go inside of there with those birds, you're in trouble. We lived by those things. Our old grandparents and parents taught us that, and we live by it. Those are intellectual, those are centering principles. And we can take all of those proverbs, Book of Wisdom, what have you, and say, they became part of our lives. Well, I mean, my life, you're not as old as I am.
Thank goodness.
Thank goodness, yes. But you still learn those principles. You're old
I have
enough to have learned.
Yes.
And that's true. We learned those things, so we didn't learn about objectification and interiority. Those were interiorizing principles. They weren't called that. That's what they were. Yes. Look before you leap. Why did you do that? Did you think about it? They don't think about it.
There was axiom and stuff like that. They're wasted now. Not just our population. I'm sure even in your environment. They are wasted. So we've really lost that. Those little wisdom statements.
Not only wasted, it does not make sense to them.
That's what I mean. But
I think
they can't identify. They can't.
But I am.
They're speaking a foreign language.
We grew up in that atmosphere. That was the sort of the way common sense wisdom, which to a large extent, you see, technology is not common sense wisdom.
Yeah. No.
It's a learned skill and you just apply it and you don't know why you're applying it.
But I was going to say that one of the things that meditation practice did for me was it actually taught me to pause without thinking.
To pause.
Pause even before I thought. Yes. Like that, when people ask me what was the biggest impact for me, is it just created this pause. So before I even reacted,
and life did not pass you by.
No, this sort of thing just sort of it was as if something in my spirit just pressed a pause button before I could react. What's been your experience with your boys in St. Mary's and specifically and meditation practice?
If I keep to the form, 3 boys.
Yeah, the 14-year-olds.
Yes, I gave them for the Christmas exam it wasn't an exam question. I told them, write, and I gave them the pointers. Tell me how our meditation practice has affected you. And some of them were really good, you know. Meditation is one of the most spiritually refreshing events I've ever experienced. This is one of the little boys writing it. After meditation, he said, your body feels ready to work. So this is not saying to go on live, to work. This is the connection. I can now face my work. Exactly.
Yes.
You may feel rejuvenated in some way. My meditational experience was brief but sweet. I personally felt like a new person. So there is the transfer from what I did to me. And then I can go to work. And one of them said here very clearly, I don't want to go through all of these, one of them said very clearly that, for instance, you know, when I meditate, I get closer to God, I return to active life, or come out of the meditation, my body is relaxed and I perform better, whether it be schoolwork or my job or my task. I have found it to be a very good way to get close to God, as well as I just forget everything that weighs me down and I just feel empowered. And this is the thing, that having done the meditation, what you were saying with your theological language, it comes back to the young man. He says, I now feel I can face the world. It's the big language about, I am a transformed person. I know where I'm coming from. This has been the eye-opener for me, and for them. And for them. I mean, I want to quote from one in particular here who...
How long have you been doing meditation with the boys?
I did it.
This is after what?
This is from the beginning of the term in September. This was the December exam. So
they
wrote
one
this
term.
One term,
Having introduced
yes.
them within a term.
3 months.
Okay.
You know, some of them. I wonder. This boy in particular, of course, I won't call his name. He is. I call him delightfully incorrigible. He does everything. He's huge. He does everything different from everybody else. And he actually wrote this piece, a long sort of treatise, you can call it. You know, my experience in the Christian meditation was a very good one. It was helpful because it helped my body to relax and my mind also. His mind really needs to relax, I can tell you. He's about everything under the sun. And he did the meditation, you know. In this meditative exercise, taught me how to deal with distractions by closing my eyes and meditating alone, to focus the exercise on the exercise and nothing else. That made my day, my year. Yeah. I gave him mark. I mean, you would love to meet this character. Yeah. You know, and that has been, as I said, the characteristic of what has happened to them doing it. And we've only done it from September.
Yes. Yes.
You know, I think I gave them a little too long sometimes, but and they're not even restless. They deal with it.
Yes, it works.
I like to share this one. I tell him the mantra, Maranatha. Father Freeman said it's ideal should be 4 syllables, Maranatha. One fellow said, I have my own word, I don't use Maranatha. I said, what do you use? He said, I use jelly burgers.
What?
I said, well, how jelly burgers come into... He said it's 4 syllables. Jelly burgers. And it makes me remember the nice things. And
in addition, you have comedians in your group.
Nothing
new.
It's a start.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, he says, I keep the jelly burgers and I say my 4. And I think of all the lovely things with jelly burgers.
Oh, gosh. Well, you have to remind him that it's to be a sacred word, but maybe not sacred to him.
I am no.
He takes his jelly burgers seriously.
He does. He told me so. Yeah. He said, I take jelly burgers very seriously. I'm not changing it. But it's the refocusing is tremendous.
Yeah.
And that's their word.
Yeah.
I would say 3 out of 4 talked about focus.
Yeah.
Focus.
Yeah, becoming the subject. And you have had similar stories with your students.
My students talk about it as being calming, as being peaceful, you know. One told me, Miss, I think that's the only time some of us really spend quality time with God.
Wow.
Those are big words for primary school.
I'm telling you. So I said, okay. And, you know, They love to do it. If I don't do it, they will remind me, Miss, you did not.
They recognize the difference.
They recognize.
They recognize the difference, the
That,
quality,
the quality of it.
of the time.
Yes.
Easily. Easily.
Sister Arlene, maybe you'd like to consider
Well, I'm
introducing
sold on it already, actually. You know,
well,
I'm really
personally,
sold on it.
yeah.
Yes, I think it's something that I think it's something that we need to try with our children, and I really believe hearing you speak, Father, about just one term and about your age group, and be able to articulate so clearly that it's making a difference in their lives.
The reason why I got into this, I went to hear Father Freeman when he was here,
Yeah.
and he was saying that the little children. Remember, he said he went to a group of primary school children, and one said, "You know something, Father? The meditation has helped me to cope with the pressures of my life." But no, that's not to be laughed at, eh?
No, but the language.
Yes,
because
that's what we mean,
It's
the language.
They
you know,
appreciate the pressures in their life, and they
sometimes we
realize.
underestimate
Then he
how-
said, again, help me to cope with the pressures of my life. So we're giving them a tremendous tool
Yes.
of coping, of focusing, centering, which I think is a fundamental thing that's lacking. And we talk about the children. I'm going way beyond the children.
But sometimes
yes.
it's the children who
Unless we
reach
should
Into-
adults.
we should say before the children.
Yes.
It's the children who draw their parents and their adults who care for them.
So at this point, I'm going to invite you to join me, and I'm going to invite the audience to join us in meditation itself. So I'll just say the opening prayer after I thank you all for that discussion and for your input and for your valuable contribution. We shall now prepare ourselves for the silence of meditation. Heavenly Father, open our hearts to the silent presence of the Spirit of your Son. Lead me into that mysterious silence where your love is revealed to all who call. Maranatha, Maranatha. Come, Lord Jesus.